So our objectives for today is, why do these meetings matter? Like, you are doing them, but let's get reconnected to why. Like, why should we be doing them? We're going to share a few ideas, key considerations. We're going to have some discussion amongst the group. So you will be invited to take off the microphone so we can hear from you, your amazing wisdom. And then we're going to talk about some of the common pitfalls that people are experiencing and see if maybe other people have some great ideas to overcome them. So that's it, sort of the why, the what, and things to be considerate of. So why do we have our weekly meetings? What I believe to be truly, is that our weekly meetings are that weekly ritual that drive strategy and culture. That when done right, our weekly meeting should be a reflection of your strategic plan. That it is like this ripple down, cascading effect, that we've already set a plan. We already all have our strategic objectives or goals, whatever language rocks your organization uses, that we all have our own sort of accountabilities that we are monitoring at a team level, at an organizational level, and at a department level. So the weekly meeting allows us to set and track this on a weekly basis. So it's driving the strategy, the actual plan that should be in place already, but it is also an opportunity for your team to connect, for your team to practice what I call like the winning formula for high performing teams, which is on a weekly basis, sharing vulnerabilities and trust, having courageous conversations, being accountable to one another, and showing commitment. Because when we honor all of those principles, we get results. So it's that balance truly of strategy and culture, driving it on a weekly basis. I added this little quote here. It connects our purpose to practice. Like, to me, that sounds like so beautiful. I love it. But in principle, it can be like, in practice, it can be really hard to do. But if we are doing our weekly meetings well, I really believe you are connecting your purpose to practice. That it is that red thread through the organization that is driving results, that is allowing you to win. All right. So, question, we're going to throw you into breakout rooms. We're going to throw you in groups of 3. Take a minute right now with your piece of paper and a pen and reflect on the purpose of your meetings. What's been the purpose of your meetings? Is it anything different from what I've described? You've already shared sort of how effective they are. So ask yourself, like, what would make it a 10 out of 10? What is standing in the way of your meeting being a 10 out of 10 right now? What are some of the challenges that you're facing? So we're going to throw you into groups of 3. Morna, are you going to be able to chat, or will you? Yes. Okay, perfect. And I just want you to sort of introduce yourself, share where you're calling in from, and then talk about your weekly meeting. What's sort of an obstacle that you're facing? And I believe I'm only giving you about 9 minutes to do this. So you each have 3 minutes to chat, and just write down what you're noticing as we chat as a group. Jen, are we good to go with the breakout rooms?
We are. I'll start them now.
Okay, thank you. Welcome back. Welcome back. All right, people, what are we noticing? Are we noticing any common themes in our weekly meetings, and what's like stopping them from being a 10 out of 10? Did any sort of themes come up in any of these discussions? Larry, I'm going to call on you, Dr. Larry. What did you guys chat about in your group?
Well, it was really, the themes came out pretty quickly. Is one is not being prepared, not being clear about the purpose of the meeting, and don't let it be hijacked because somebody's got an issue. And we talked about when people speak, they have to, in my view, the 3 C's: be clear, concise, and convincing, and just really manage the meeting. People get quite excited. And the last thing we talked about, if you can't be there, sometimes your mother dies, you probably should go to the funeral, but you send an update that you share with the group, and it still feel like they're right there. But the whole idea is making sure everybody is prepared, and we listen properly, and we speak clearly.
Way to hit the ground running. I love it. That's
we had
fantastic.
a good group.
Yeah.
Had a great group.
Well, this is a great group of people. I'm a little bit biased, but awesome. Let's hear from someone else. What else was discussed? Anything new to add to what Dr. Larry said?
I'll go, Carolyn.
Thanks, Morna.
Since I changed locations so that I could fully participate. So Wendy and Gordon and I had a good chat, and one of the themes that came up for us was meetings being very tactical and mechanical, and not really hitting on, not connecting to the purpose, as you said, which was at the beginning, connecting practice to purpose, not necessarily doing that. Wendy's organization has a practice of doing that type of a meeting monthly so that they can hit on some of those maybe deeper or higher level topics, but which I thought was a really good takeaway. And if I may, another thing that I learned from Wendy that I thought I'm going to try to implement was a capacity scale. So everybody talking about where they're at in terms of busyness, because the stated purpose of our weekly meetings is supposed to be to allocate resources and see who's busy and where work can get done. So I thought that was a really good tip.
Awesome. Awesome. What's fun about this group is we have a lawyer, we have an accountant. So there is really this idea of like getting work out evenly. And Eva, you just jumped into the call. Welcome. I'm going to put you on the spot because I know that capacity is something that your team deals with. Everybody just came back from a breakout room where they're sharing what's sort of been getting in the way of their meetings being a 10 out of 10. And as you heard from Morna and Wendy, they were talking about sort of allocating people's capacity. Do you do that in your weekly meetings, Eva? Talk about capacity or like, yeah. Or is that done outside of your weekly meeting?
I guess we have the data for the meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's different now with COVID. It's a different capacity restriction, right?
Okay. Go on. Do you mean capacity in terms of the amount of people?
People
Okay.
are the problem.
Not having enough people to do the work.
Yeah.
That's the problem. So it's not about the weekly meeting. It's about not having enough people to do the work. Put your hand up if you are experiencing Eva's pain in your business. Who's feeling the pain of not having enough people to do the work? Okay, so about half and half. Dan's got 2 hands up in the air. Okay, we'll save that topic for another day.
So I'd say it's more of like an efficiency allocation thing, highest best value use time.
Yes.
So I guess to answer that, yes, we do look at that, right? And like ranking your utilization is what we're doing.
Okay, that's great. That's another good tip.
Not so much like a blind funnel. It's
Right.
more of, okay, this is the funnel, this is what we have. It's like an optimizing the utilization.
Okay. So what I want you guys to do is Dr. Larry gave us some really great tips. Morna shared some of her tips. I just called on Eva in the last minute here. I want you to capture a little bit about what you're taking away is important from that discussion, just like in 1 minute from the discussions that you've had or what has been already shared. Just capture quickly what's important for you and your team right now. Awesome. Okay. So what I've done is over the years, I've just done so much reading on weekly meetings, on time management, on planning. And some of my favorite resources I'll just share with you are Scaling Up by Vern Hernesh. He's sort of the forefather of this sort of strategic rhythm, if you will. Traction, which is a spin-off of Scaling Up by, I've forgotten the name, but they have the EOS, Entrepreneurs Organizational System, and I'm going to refer to that in a minute. And then most recently, a book, The Heart of Business. So The Heart of Business is more of this much heart-centered way of like tracking people and performance and purpose and all of those things. So when I do these webinars, I'm always just drawing from all of these resources, and we're going to share them with you in an email tomorrow. So as I was reflecting on this webinar, I was like, okay, well, what do we need to remember when having our weekly meetings? And so I've drawn from all of these resources to create what I'm calling like your high performance meeting arc. So it's like all of the phases that you need to consider as it relates to what needs to go into your meeting. Because I will say it over and over and over again, there is not a one fit solution for every one of your companies. You have to take this information, apply it to what is happening in your companies, and create the best solution for you. You're hearing that some of the professional services businesses have capacity issues, and they're truly just trying to figure out how can we maximize what everybody has on their plates. But the construction business might be a little bit different. A product company might be a little bit different. So that's why I don't believe in these one size fits all templates. And I want you to design what works for you. But here are some key phases for you to truly consider. We've already talked about the purpose. Why are we having this meeting? Is it to connect us to our purpose? Is it to connect people? Is it to just track capacity? Or is it to talk about learnings, key learnings that we're having in the business? And then preparation. What preparation needs to go into this? What do I have to do to prepare? What does the team need to do to prepare? How can we leverage technology to help us with preparation? It's one thing to talk about preparation and have these best ideas, but people really need to buy in. And as we've already heard in this discussion, preparation is probably the number one place where most teams fail, because people don't show up ready. Having a strong opening. So we've gone from sort of this planning stage to now like we're in the meeting. Having a strong opening for the meeting is a great place to connect the heart of your business to the strategy and to the purpose. It's a great place to just check in with the human element of your people. We can share winning stories. We can share stories from clients. We can share stories from coworkers. We can talk about the news, but having a very human-centered approach to your opening is a really great way to create what I call the container, the safe space for the meeting. So really we're setting the table, we're laying the foundation. But with this comes planning on your part. Like, what are we going through right now? What are some icebreaker questions? What are some ways that we can use this opening to connect as human beings, to build that vulnerability and trust that's needed on teams? Next is the middle. What are you guys tracking? Do you have KPIs? Do you have a dashboard? Do you have team goals or strategic objectives? I find a lot of companies use a lot of different language. So really it's important for you and your organizations to lock in the language of your business. Is it strategic objectives? Is it SMART goals? Is it rocks? Whatever your language is, make sure that is commonly accepted throughout the organization. But the middle is commonly where we share what we are tracking. And so what have we been tracking? So where we come from, where am I at right now? And what am I working on? Okay, so that's what goes into the middle. It's that tracking. But what you're tracking and how is truly up to you. And then finally, a close. Closing can be, it can be anything from a simple check-in, was this meeting effective, to a what are you committed to? What are you communicating to the whole organization that you are going to be working on? It's a call to action that everybody is hearing you share. So the two pieces there are really, one is like, what am I working on? And then a close is, was this meeting effective? And then lastly is this piece of accountability. Like that is, so who is responsible for what? Who is doing what and by when? Okay. So often in meetings, like we have these really great discussions and it's like, yeah, we should do that, but then they fall short. And so we really want to make sure that people are very clear on who is owning what. Okay, so this is sort of the arc. What I want you to consider now, based on everything that I've said and what might have already been mentioned, is where does your organization need to spend some time thinking a little bit more? Just write it down. Is it in the purpose? Is it in the prep? Is it in the opening? Where do you think that by spending some really purposeful time reflecting on what needs to go into that phase, you might move the dial a little bit? Okay, So how do meetings get derailed? We've already touched on this a little bit. Here are some of the thoughts that I have. They don't start on time and they don't go over, or sorry, and they go over. They don't follow an agenda. There's no clear agreed upon agenda. They can just be an update. Participants come unprepared. That was already discussed. Participants talk too much about context. When you're giving an update, we need to get really clear on what the update should look like. Is it a green, yellow, red? Is it a done, working on it, stuck, like in progress? Like really come up with the language of how you are rating what you're working on, but also like how you are talking about it. I often see, and I do this, and this is a coaching tactic, but it's people sort of telling the story about the story when they talk. So we really need to train our participants around what exactly we are sharing and how we are sharing as progress. In the EOS model, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, they do tracking, but they also leave space for discussing key issues. When you move from tracking to key issues, this is where that context and that storytelling can really get out of hand. And so we want to really adopt this practice of why am I talking, wait, or bottom lining. However, when we get into the issues section of a meeting, another place that I see us getting derailed because we want to be polite and we want to keep the meeting going is that we don't always like challenge each other. Pam's smiling over there. We're all polite. We're all really kind. It's like, yeah, we all have things to do. We really just don't want to like dive into this right now. I get it. But you guys as a team, you need to figure out when is it okay for us to be like, hey, you know what? Like you said you were going to do this thing and you keep having a story about it for like the last 2 or 3 weeks. Like what's going on? Like when is it safe to sort of call each other out? I don't see enough of that. And that might just be because I'm a special guest and I come in every once in a while, but I love it when teams can sort of like call each other and be a little bit more accountable to say, listen, like, I can't accept what you're saying just at face value because you're not serving the business when you really are just all playing nice with one another. That sort of lends into this idea of courageous conversations. But the tricky, which you guys have to figure out, is when do you have that conversation? You know, is this a common theme that maybe you take offline and someone has that conversation with the person who's always sort of just kicking the ball down the road? Or is there an opportunity in your meetings to challenge each other a little bit more and say, hey, like, you're not showing me accountability here. You're not showing me commitment because this thing keeps getting dragged out. So that is a place, it's a very delicate place, but I really think that when we continue to just play nice all the time for the sake of keeping time, that we are really not talking about the important things in an organization, and that is not moving the organization forward. Okay, enough on that topic. So here's this example of an EOS level 10 meeting. You're going to get, I'm not going to go through this like step by step. We're going to send you, EOS has a ton of resources online. I'm going to send you the link in the email tomorrow. Who here has seen this level 10 meeting agenda before? Put up your hand. Larry has, Eva has, Jasmine has, Morna has. Okay, so Shane sort of, so a third of it. So again, it's this idea that meetings start on time. We bring the human element. They have that reporting system in place that really is a reflection of their greater strategic planning rhythm. But what I really like about EOS is they do create this space and time to discuss issues. So when people are giving their updates, if a topic comes up, I'm stuck here, they put it on the parking lot. I call it the parking lot. And then at the end, when everybody's done their updates in about 30 minutes, there's 60 minutes in this meeting template for people to hammer out whatever topic, whatever item is feeling stuck for them. The group prioritizes what the issue is that they're all going to pull apart together. But then they talk about it. And to me, this is a really great way of talking about what's important in your organization and not just like playing nice with each other and your updates. So creating that space to identify the issue, discuss it, pull it apart, surface the root. I always call it farming. You're looking for the root issue, and then together solve it. And solve it in a way that is sort of like meaningful for the person who raised it. Ultimately, you want the person that has the issue to own the way that they're going to solve it. So it's best if they come up with the idea and not you telling them. But really just want to make clear here that this is one of the pieces that I love about the EOS meeting rhythm is this space to discuss key issues. And then they have a conclusion where you recap what needs to be done, discuss what needs to be disseminated to the organization. That is another place where I think not enough people spend enough time. Who needs to know what, who's going to communicate it, and how we're going to do that. I think a lot of that happens. We just take it for granted that leaders are going to take it back to their departments and share it with them. And I don't think that happens as effectively as it can. So another place to like really dig in. And then finally, asking everybody on a scale of 1 to 10, on a scale of 1 to 5, how effective were we today? We don't need to discuss the effectiveness, but it was really great sort of little temperature check to say like, hey, this meeting felt like it got offline today. Or, hey, we really nailed it, but we don't need to discuss it. Just evaluate it and move on. So about a third of you have seen this, but there's lots of other templates out there. There's lots of other rhythms. The Heart of Business has some interesting discussion where they just met, it's all about people for them. So what are my key stakeholders saying about us? What are we doing for them right now? What are our key people doing? What are our clients' needs? What's profitability look like? So the Heart of Business has its own formula that I think is really new and interesting. And if it feels like something that maybe is more meaningful to you, I definitely recommend that you check it out. So that's the traction model. I've talked about the Heart of Business. Does anybody else have a template or a rhythm that they've been following that is actually quite effective that they wouldn't mind sharing with the group? Linda, I see you. No. Dan, what's some of your, no great resources. Morna?
You're reminding me that in a past organization, we used exactly this template and how effective it was. I don't know that we have anything, we've not followed this exact formula, but you're reminding me of a few places that I might be able to use it.
Okay, awesome. Dr. Larry?
Yes, I've used EOS for a long time, and it's all about that preparation. Once your people understand this, they actually like to come to meetings because they get a lot done. So I'm a big fan, long time of EOS.
Awesome, fantastic. So here, we're going to send you this again in the email, but here are just some of my own thoughts on what makes a high-performing meeting or what makes an effective meeting for a high-performing team. I always start with that purpose. We've talked about that, but show up energized. Like if you're hosting the meeting and you're the leader, like you got to bring the energy, people. Like we can't just be like, oh, I didn't get any sleep last night because I have a new puppy. I'm so tired. No, you got to bring the energy. You got to bring it. You got to set the pace for everybody else. And remember that this is like connected to this greater plan. Like this is our opportunity to drive the strategy that we planned out 6 months ago, that every time we meet, it's a meaningful opportunity for us to achieve results together. Make sure that your meetings are scheduled same day, same time, same week. As Dr. Larry already mentioned, if you can't be there, like have a best practice for that. Often I see companies just canceling the meeting because 1 or 2 people can't be there, especially if it's like the leader, no, pass the baton to someone else. This is a great opportunity to be like, hey, Wendy, you're taking the meeting this week. Hey, Linda, you're taking the meeting this week. And they can add their own sort of energy and spice to it. Follow up and follow through. I think that goes back into the preparation. Don't take things at face value. Centralized place for preparation and meeting notes. What does that look like in your organizations? Does anybody use technology for their meetings? Can anybody share some technology that they might be using?
We use WhatsApp.
WhatsApp to prepare?
No, yeah, WhatsApp to hold all the information.
Do you?
Yeah.
Interesting. Dan, you're nodding your head. Why are you nodding? What do you guys use WhatsApp?
I found that was interesting as well. We don't do a very good job at all in agendas and then meeting minutes. That is something we as a team need to work on.
Okay, awesome. And it might not even be the agenda. It might just be like people's commitment to action that you're sharing, that we can all reference that in the meeting. You said you were going to do this, and did you get it done? Red light, yellow light, green light. Gord, do you guys have a centralized place for preparation or meeting notes? You're on mute.
No, we just go to our task management system and use that as the basis for conversations. So
Your what, sorry?
our task management, like other people said, Asana, we use Jira. So it's where all the work and all the status is supposed to be.
Okay, so Jira, Asana, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But the point on technology is only really good if you have the culture for people to actually update it before the meeting and not talking about what's not updated in the meeting.
Right. Has anyone in their organization felt that pain that Gord's referring to and been able to overcome it through somehow, like people coming better prepared? Eva, how would you say your team shows up? How prepared do they show up?
I'm in a funny place right now. We used to do all this when we were using you for coaching. So I'm like reminiscing back to like, oh my gosh, I remember what that felt like. And now I've been like taking notes of all the things to like nip things in the butt. We used to use Asana as well. I loved Asana. I have the same issue. I'm like, we're having meetings for the sake of having meetings. And how do you get, like, Gord, how do you get certain people to just shut up? Right? Like, I know I talk a lot in meetings, but sometimes it just goes and I'm like trying to be polite here and like giving you a space to vent. But how do you be like, hey, that's not the purpose of the meeting?
Definitely. Well, I think it takes a skilled host and a facilitator, as well as an agreement up front, which is what's at the bottom of this slide here, which is practicing wait. Okay, so team, we're going to practice wait. Why am I talking? And that if someone is going on long-winded, you might have to jump in and say, look, I just got to jump in here. Like, what is the point of what you're saying? What's the bottom line? I use my hands like this. I'm like, let's bottom line it. And I think people just know me to be a little bit rude and interrupting, but someone's got to do it. Whoever's hosting it, someone's got to do it. Larry, you're a master facilitator. How do you get people to get to the bottom line?
Well, the first thing we do is we create an operation norm for a group. So what's acceptable, like trust, vulnerability, authentic feedback. And it's not what I say, here's some things, and then we agree so that it's safe for me to say, you're talking too much, Carolyn, because that's in the code of conduct. So that's one thing to do. Secondly, is unless we have trust with all of us, nobody's going to challenge me. So the most important thing for me is to show I am vulnerable. I don't do it right all the time, and I'm prepared to share that. It's amazing when you show your vulnerability, you start building trust. So that's how I've used this is to make sure that everybody is safe and they see from the leader that I'm vulnerable to all the issues that I'm expecting them to be so good at, and sometimes I'm not.
Great share. Great share. Jen, I want to make sure that we capture those points for these bullets, is that like setting those agreements up front with your team. I want to add that to the list. Great
Carolyn,
question.
Can I say one more thing?
Please do.
which goes to your arc there. This, to me, the opening is the biggest thing. And I think you've seen that. So I create questions, how about 50 questions? And it's, I want to get them sharing. And so one of the questions that has been so successful is this: if you could live one day in your life again without changing anything, what would that be and why? And I set that out beforehand. It's absolutely amazing. People are sharing at the birth of their daughter. It's something, but all of a sudden I now see you as a whole different person than just somebody from accounting. And so that opening is really important. And the question is put out beforehand, and people actually start spending some time saying, well, hey, this is how I can answer that question.
Yeah, that's that human moment, creating that space for that human connection at the beginning. I love it. I want to tap into your database of 50 hard-hitting opening questions, Larry. Maybe we can create our own together, you guys. So there are sort of my key considerations. What I want you now, hold on one second, is I want you to reflect. So what are you noticing? Like, this has just been rapid fire issues, ideas, solutions, technology. I was just in the chat and I see that people are using Monday. Some people use Slack, some people use Asana. Even like a good old cloud Google Doc is a great place to save sort of some preparation. But getting back to the point of what I'm saying is that, what are you noticing about how you can spice up your weekly meetings? Like, what do you need to do? So take a minute, reflect. What's a key action step? Just one, what's like a teeny tiny, like kicking the ball in front of me action steps, like my new favorite expression. What's a teeny tiny action step that you can do to ramp up the meeting closer to a 10 out of 10? And maybe what's like something a bit bigger, a discussion that you need to have, or some realignment of agreements that you may need to do that would really help with the preparation and or having more effective meetings. Just write it down, reflect. All right, now, as your accountability to us and to Coach Carolyn, I want you to share one sort of key takeaway that you're taking from this conversation. It might be something that you just written down. It might be a nugget. It might be a resource that you want to go check out again. Put it in the chat. What's one sort of key nugget that you will be taking away from our quick chat today? Purpose, Eva, love it. More, not too many. Come on, that's playing it safe. This is me calling you out. That's playing it a bit safe. Looking into a better task management software. Yeah, Dan, it'd be interesting to see, like, I think that goes hand in hand with a bigger conversation in your organization around like just like flow, like planning. But yeah, there's like some low-hanging fruit around task management, like Monday or Asana. But I think as it relates to construction, you might find something that's attached to something you guys already have and that you use it more effectively. Agenda, agreements in advance. Lots of meetings, but are we having the right meetings with the right people? Yeah. So Priya Parker, I know you love her, Warren, I love her too. The Art of Gathering. She talks about like making sure you have the right people at the meeting, around the table. You know, just because they have been there in the past doesn't mean they need to be there. Are they adding any value? A weekly meeting, in my mind, is really a meeting to drive that strategy where it is connected to strategic objectives, and those strategic objectives are connected to your strategic plan. But if you are needing to discuss key learnings from a new launch or an event, if you're needing to discuss a hot button issue, you know, something that might be elevated a bit bigger than just a common issue as it relates to your tasks, I feel like that is a meeting that you set up separately. So when we start thinking about the purpose and who needs to be at the meeting, really there are different types of meetings. Yesterday, I was with Dr. Larry at his McKay Group CEO Forum, and we were talking about how to influence without authority. And that topic is really unique. Like, it's a really unique situation that requires some intentional preparation. But what it raises is that there are lots of different types of conversations that we need to have out there. So the weekly meeting is, in my mind, is really a tracking meeting, but there are coaching conversations that need to happen. There are learning conversations and meetings that need to happen. And I'm seeing this done in like town halls, or as Wendy and Morna pointed out, Wendy's been doing a really great job of sort of surfacing a hot button and bringing it to the group on a monthly basis. Fireside chats. Dan, your company's been doing a great job of fireside chats. That's what you're calling them. Is that right? Thumbs up. Yes. Dan? No? What do you guys call your, aren't you doing like a quarterly town hall fireside chat? You're doing something. I don't know what the language you're using. A big update to the whole organization.
Town hall.
Town hall. There we go. Town hall. So see how language matters. So find the name, find the purpose, who needs to be invited. That's really, really important. But what we were lasering in on today was the weekly meeting. Learn to be vulnerable. Yes, Dr. Larry, I think that is a great tip. Don't feel the need to be nice. Jazz, is that really an issue for you? Do you play nice? I feel like you're probably pretty good at calling people out. So you guys, some really, really great tips. But one thing I really want to hit home, and like, you know, poor Dr. Larry, I got a bit emotional in my presentation to his group yesterday, but it's because gathering matters. Conversations matters. And as Priya says, it's through these meetings that we figure out what we believe. We get a consensus on clarity. We get consensus on what is important and what is static. And so rather than these just being like update tracking meetings, like I challenge you to bring meaning to them, meaningful connection, meaningful purpose, so that we can all be connected in a bigger, bolder way, and achieve the clarity that we need to stay engaged in our roles, to stay happy in our organizations, and to really believe in what your organizations are doing. So there's like my big, bold soapbox speech, but like, don't just let the meeting come and go as another update and tracking. Today is your challenge to turn it up incrementally, and ultimately connect, you know, your purpose to practice. Give it some meaning. There you go. We have some exciting stuff coming up. In the month of April, Dr. Larry's coming back as a guest speaker. We're going to send you his LinkedIn profile, unless you've got something else you want me to share with everybody, Dr. Larry. But Dr. Larry is a pretty unique, amazing human being who has had a very storied career and I've been meeting with him. I would call him a bit of a mentor, sort of friend, all of the things. He is an acclaimed public speaker. He is a former medical doctor, and he is an outstanding facilitator and leader to a bunch of different sort of forum style groups. And we're going to bring him back in April to sort of talk about how you move from success to significance, and how something like a peer-to-peer forum group can really make the difference in your career. Dr. Larry, is there anything you want to add to what I just said?
I think we should leave the suspense till April 27th.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. And then the other is our next book club, the Stress Code. That's going to be happening in May. The Stress Code is written actually by a friend of Rick and ours, Richard Sutton. Richard was Rick's trainer when he was a professional tennis player. He was a trainer, he was a therapist, he sort of traveled with Rick, and then he went on to travel with some other bigger players around the world. He trained out of China, and he's just a human who really like walks what he talks as it relates to health and well-being. And, you know, I think Dr. Larry would agree with me, like, our health is our number one priority, And Richard's written this book, The Stress Code, grabbing sort of all of the important things that he's learned along the way about how to be healthy in life. And he's from South Africa, actually, and is really well known in South Africa, and he's just moving to Canada this year. So that's exciting for us and for Richard. But we hope this is a bit of a departure from some of the other books that we've read around leadership and like sort of better conversations, and more of a great book for you to read on just how we can be healthier. And fingers crossed, we're hoping that he might actually be on the call with us, but time zones and things like that are making it a bit tricky. So that's what we have coming up. We hope that you will jump in and engage. Linda jumped in and said, is it okay that I'm here? I'm like, of course, please, like, extend the invite to anyone, whether they're on my email list or not, whether it be other people in your organization. You guys know me, like, I love people. I love connecting with you all. So it's really fun. If you have to hop off, go for it. If you have some more questions or some best practices that you want to share, like, let's keep chatting. I will stop talking and I want to hear from you guys. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. And yeah, stick around if you want to chat some more.